Friends and esteemed viewers, welcome to another edition of Look at This Graph, where we look at the Denver real estate market in graph form and try to make sense of what's going on and what's coming. It is August. It's the dog days of summer. We are talking about where the market is right now. If you've watched these before this year, you know that I've talked a lot about the market slowing, and it is in a considerably different place than it was last year or the year before that, or even, dare I say, the year before that. So I want to give you a look at where we are now, and I want to compare and contrast two different property types because I've had some questions about this. When I've alluded to it in the past, hey, what's the difference between a single family home, a freestanding house, and a condo or townhome? There's a really big difference, obviously, in what they are, but in what's going on with the markets right now and has been for some time. So I want to dig into the numbers on those a little bit and then just look at the numbers as a whole, look at where things are hotter and colder in the Denver metro and give you an idea of how to best proceed if you are a buyer or seller in this real estate market. So I'm hanging out here in the corner like always, and I will probably continue to move myself around because that's what I seem to like to do. So this is detached single family. Okay, and so this is, I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call and it is spam. I need to find a way to get rid of that. So this is the general graph that I start with about where things are in general. But this one right now is detached. So this is houses. So I want to compare houses to condos and townhomes, attached properties. And a lot going on. Sometimes I think, overwhelm you a little bit. So just try to focus on the black bar here. This is months of supply of inventory. This is how many homes are on the market. And obviously we're going all the way back to 2005 here. You see pre-crash and during the crash and after the crash of 2008, things were much, much higher. Of course, then they slowly got lower and lower and lower, lower supply, meaning stronger real estate market in general. And then of course here during COVID, it really bottomed out. There was not a lot on the market. There were a lot of new homes coming on the market and getting bought very, very quickly. Now you see what happens. It's gone up a little bit. Okay, so if we want to contrast here between detached single family, let's look at over here. See, this is where we are with supply right now, which is significantly higher than it has been at any time in recent history, but of course, historically still pretty low. And then comparing that to attached, you see it's much higher. And I'm actually going to turn on my sidebar here so that I can just flop between those two things much quicker. So detached, attached. Detached, attached. Way, way higher. And if we look at the numbers, this is 2.8 months of supply of inventory. That's how it's measured. And this here in the attached properties, 5. So almost twice as much on the market in terms of supply. And when you look at year over year, because that's one of the things I've talked about a lot, how many more properties we have on the market this year than at the same time last year, because that is one of the things causing this major, major slowdown year over year. Active listings in the detached, in the houses category is 38%, and in the attached properties, 45%. So year over year, higher there too. So a bigger discrepancy. And so if you have been in the market at all, either whether looking or trying to sell, you know if you have an attached property, it's much harder, especially if it's a condo. If you're trying to sell a condo outside of very unique situations in the Denver metro right now, it's very, very challenging. Sure, some of them sell really quickly. We had one recently that sold pretty quickly. We have some that are sitting. It just depends on the buyer pool and what buyers are looking for. And so with condos, just to set expectations, it is much, much harder out there. And as a buyer, you have your pick of the litter. There's a lot on the market when you look at months of supply, and there are a lot of opportunities for sellers who just are trying to sell and just haven't been able to. And so there's this other factor. This is exasperated by HOA fees, I think. Condos and townhomes always sell a little slower and appreciate at a slower rate in a normal market in Denver, but now HOAs have gone up so much the last few years due to inflation. A big part of that is insurance premiums. Now it's making that monthly payment for buyers even harder. And this is a situation where monthly payments suck to begin with because interest rates have stayed so high. Now, interest rates did come down a little bit the last 2 weeks. And I'm not talking 0.05%, 0.1%. They went from about 6.8 to about 6.5. That is significant. Has it been significant enough to get buyers off the sideline? Not from anything me and my team and I have seen yet. And in case you don't know, I run a real estate team here in the Denver Metro called the Alchemy Group. It would be my pleasure to speak to you regarding anything real estate. It's our goal to be your go-to resource for real estate in the Denver Metro, so there are tons of ways to reach out here on the channel. And so I do want to compare and contrast a few different ways, but before I get to that, I just want to take a look, because this is something we've talked about before too, at different zip codes in the Denver Metro and how relatively hot or cold those real estate markets are, because this is something that is a major, major factor whether you're buying or selling right now. A lot of the time we just talk about the Denver Metro, but they're beyond that, and even beyond any given city, Denver, Littleton, Broomfield, Centennial, there are micro markets that will be much hotter, much colder, depending on where you're looking. And so this is a map of the Denver Metro right now. I don't want to drill down too far. I may make it just a little bit bigger, just so we can see it. In non-graph form, unfortunately. But so basically what you're looking at here, this is months of inventory by zip code. And this includes both detached and attached properties. So this is everything. Months of inventory by zip code. The red or orange has lower inventory. So lower supply, more competition in those areas. The yellow is kind of in the middle. And then anything greenish becoming blue is more supply. So if you look out here, Green Valley Ranch, tons of supply, 8.7 months of supply, lots. If you look in central Denver, you're seeing it much softer, even some of those more established Denver neighborhoods, Platt Park, Wash Park type of thing. Capitol Hill. And again, we can't drill down. We could take a look at the individual data cells. We're not going to do it here, but downtown has been a problem for a while. That's full on blue. That is the highest inventory area in the Denver Metro right now, and it has been a long time. A lot of that is due to these challenges with condos that I talked about before. So look at the hottest areas though. Northwest suburbs, so Broomfield, Louisville, Westminster, those sorts of things, up by Boulder. You have good school districts, you have quiet, you have the idea of safety, you have mountain views, you have space. Those are things people are looking for right now, and you're seeing that in Arvada too. Arvada very, very strong, has been for a while, especially that Old Town Arvada area. Once you get out here in those bigger monstrosity areas where they're building these big multi-million dollar new homes in these HOA communities, that is much higher inventory. That is slower. And if you're looking Golden, Morrison on the west side of town, even up to Evergreen, that's still very strong. And some other Lakewood and Western Denver neighborhoods are pretty strong. People wanting to be on the west side of town. This is, of course, nothing new. And then the south suburbs. Within the 470 corridor and kind of right on the 470 corridor, those are very, very competitive right now. Highlands Ranch, Centennial, Littleton, very strong, especially those more central areas of those suburbs. As we get over here to Aurora on the east side, Aurora is big, right? So it has a bunch of different pockets, but relatively competitive. One of the reasons there is prices on the whole are lower. And so people having these challenges with affordability are looking for lower priced options to lower that monthly payment. That's something that's going on there. And then as we get to the outer ring suburbs, as we get down here, even into Parker's pretty strong. But down here, well down into Castle Rock, it's getting much slower. There's a ton on the market there. And then, of course, northeast side of town, Commerce City, that is going to be slower as well. Newer builds, farther out, east side of town, less buyer activity right now, more listings sitting on the market. And then as we go, I'm going to make this smaller again here. I like these because you guys can see me just struggle my way through a little live to tape shoot. This is odds of selling, okay? And so this is odds of selling for detached single family. So going back to the comparison between detached and attached. So detached, again, is houses Okay. And so odds of selling right now, this takes into account all of the properties that were listed in a given month and how many of them went under contract. It's at 38.8, let's say 39% for detached single family properties. And then if we're going to look at attached, it's down at 26%. So you see it right there and right there. Big, big difference. That's down 10% year over year, almost 11% year over year for the attached properties. And so again, it's just taking longer. Odds of selling are lower. If we're going to compare showing data, I love looking at showing data. So this is showings per listing per month. On average, right now, for detached single family properties, it is 5 showings per month. That's a bit bleak. If you're looking at selling your home and you have a good house and you're getting 5 showings per month, doesn't sound great. If we move to attached, 3. So less than 1 a week. So if you're getting less than 1 showing a week on your property and it's a condo and you're saying, what's going on? I have a good condo in a good location. Sure, the HOA is high, but come on. You're not alone. You are not alone. If you're getting 1 showing per week, that's great. If you're getting more than 1 showing per week as an attached or a detached rather property as a house, that is good. These are going to slow down typically over the life of the listing. And that's another thing I want to look at too when it comes to how long listings are sitting on the market. So I look at average days on market for the most part, rather than median when it comes to days on market. Okay, so this is for detached. Average days on market right now are 32. You can see it right down here. You can see it was bottoming out during COVID and has come up much longer. These peaks and valleys, this is the seasonal rhythm. So days on market are much lower in the springtime, first half of the year, and go much, much higher second half of the year into the holidays where things just sit and buyers aren't out there looking. So 32 for detached. And then if we go to, why is that not working? If we go to attached, there we go, 54. Huge difference. I mean, you just see it shoot up here from the bottom of the market, much, much longer. 54 days and on average, 30 days on median for attached. But again, the average, that's almost 2 months. And so if you're sitting on the market, you are, you're not alone. And I'm speaking to a lot of these things from a seller point of view, but I do want to talk to buyers about what the opportunities are out there as well. And but just before we do that, as we get to the end, I want to look at prices, especially when it comes to year over year, because people want to know, what are prices actually doing? It seems like they're down. Are they down? I'm seeing all these price drops. Well, it depends. So again, it also depends by area, but just breaking it down, detached to attached, detached single family prices are actually up, believe it or not, year over year. That's both median and average. So average is up 3%, median's up 2.7%. For single family homes, which is kind of crazy. They're sitting on the market much longer. And it's a chicken and egg situation. Sellers aren't making price reductions. So is that why they're sitting on the market longer? Or are sellers even seeing it sit on the market longer and not making price reductions because they're saying, no, I don't need to sell. I'm not willing to make this big cut to move this property. I'm going to stick to my guns because that's what the comps tell me. Of course, the comps lag a little bit. We're in a much slower market than we've seen in at least 6 years, maybe 10 years. And so if you really want to sell your home quickly and not sit on the market for months, you need to price ahead of the comps now, which means below the comps now. And happy to have that conversation with you. But a lot of people aren't. They're fine to sit for a few months or longer or take their home off the market, which is what we're seeing happening. A ton of listings expiring because sellers are just not willing to go to a level that they think is below what they should get for their home. And then if we are to compare it to, attached, that's where we see prices come down year over year. Average 5%, median 1.3%, and you just see what happens here. They really, since the peak of 2021, but then in 22, they held sturdy basically from 22 to 23 and then started slowly coming down. You do see a little bit of a seasonal bounce there, but comparing it to detached properties where you see the seasonal up and down, but overall the trajectory is just up and to the right. When that changes, I don't know. A year over year raise of 3 or 2% is not very high. That's slightly below typical for the Denver Metro, but it is a bit surprising even to me that they continue to go up. Okay. And then if we're to look at concessions, so this is one big thing that's not reflected in this pricing data, okay? Because seller concessions are happening on a number of properties. And you're not seeing it in these graphs here. So it's sort of the hidden thing that's happening with pricing. So what a seller concession is, if you don't know, is just saying, hey, rather than ask you to reduce the price, I'm going to ask for some amount of cash back at closing. And the reason that those things are very popular right now is that because that cash can be used for any closing costs, including a mortgage rate buy down. So taking that money to buy down your loan is one of the hacks for opening up the market for buyers right now, because sellers are willing to give concessions in a lot of situations. And so concessions are really, really big. They are not reflected in the purchase price, but they do factor into the net price of the home. And so if we look at concessions on detached single families, this breaks it down by price range. Let's just look at all prices. There is a concession, some sort of seller concession, on 62% of transactions right now. In detached single family houses too. If we look at the amount of concession, this is not huge, but they are saying they are the largest concession we're given for homes between $400,000 to $600,000 at just over $7,500. That's an average. But if you're looking across price points, you're seeing seller concessions average anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000. This is money, so it's not huge. And sometimes this is for inspection concessions or other things if they come up throughout the process. But a lot of the time, this is money you can take and use to make your monthly payment lower by buying that mortgage rate down. And I've seen it much higher than this too. I've seen $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in seller concessions put towards a mortgage rate buy down. There are limits if you have a mortgage on how much you can get, but at the price range of $800,000 to $1 million, let's say, you can get 15. Sometimes you can get $20,000 for seller concessions to help with that monthly payment. If we're going to look at them, this is attached, and you're seeing something very, very similar. 64% of properties on attached have a seller concession. So 62% for detached, 64% for attached is about the same thing. Either way, buyers are needing relief to get that interest rate bought down. Again, concessions don't always go towards that, but oftentimes right now they do. And one more thing before we depart: interest rates and monthly payments and affordability. I've shown this before, but the blue right here is your monthly principal and interest payment. This is for a detached. This is for a house. Look at where it is compared to where it was a few years ago. Okay. We're right here now. We were here now. This is crazy. This is averaging well over $4,000 a month for a median sold price home in the Denver metro. And then if we look at attached properties, obviously it's much lower in terms of dollar amount, but you still see it's gone from here to here. It has taken a similar jump in the last few years. And I mean, it's eerily similar what's happening there. And this isn't even factoring in HOA costs. So if you're a buyer, this is what I mentioned before. If you're a buyer and you're looking at this and you are feeling discouraged by all of it, I understand that. And waiting for some people is a good option. But if you are interested in buying now and starting building that long-term wealth, long-term equity, this concessions, this unlocks the game, because you do have leverage as a buyer. So rather than asking for a bunch off the purchase price, you ask for a bunch in concessions. And not only can you just pay, help with your general closing costs, but if you get enough, you can put that towards a 30-year interest rate buy down and significantly lower your monthly payment. A lot of times, the last few years, people have been doing temporary buy downs, 2 or 3 year buy downs, and then they would go back up to whatever the interest rate would have been, because they wanted that temporary relief and their plan was to refinance in the future. Well, since interest rates have stayed relatively high for 2 to 3 years now, a lot of buyers are opting for that permanent buy down. It doesn't get you as far, but it gets you interest rate relief over the life of the loan, over that 30-year mortgage. They're opting for that peace of mind. 2 different ways to do it, but really the concession part of it does unlock the game a little bit for buyers right now. And this is something to discuss with your agent and with your lender in terms of how to structure the deal to best fit you. It can be a win-win for buyers and sellers right now. If a seller is going to give a significant concession, a lot of the time that's going to be the same or less than a price reduction they would have to do to get that place sold. And it's going to help bring them a buyer to actually get their place sold. And it's going to help that buyer get into a palatable monthly payment. So if you made it this far with me, love you. Let me know what else you'd like to see in these market updates on the channel. Sam Newman, Alchemy Group. We would love to chat with you about buying or selling and come up with with what I'm doing right now, but customized to your home or your buyer needs. That's really a place we excel. So thanks for hanging out with me, and talk to you soon.